Welcome to Knitting Needles and Stems. I'm Carrie, I'm the host. I'm recording today on Sunday, June 29th, 2025. And today we will talk about works in progress, finished objects, knit-alongs, more out than in, my patterns, and gardening. So before we get started, I just wanted to remind everybody that I set up a Ravelry group. It's called Knitting Needles and Stems. And I would love for you to come and join the group. And if you would like me to say hi to you on the podcast, you can introduce yourself in the shout out thread, and I will do that. So what's new? I attended my first knitting retreat last weekend. It was Thursday the 19th through Sunday the 22nd. It was so much fun. It was the Yarniacs podcast knitting retreat. And we met at the DeColvin Center in Racine, Wisconsin. This building was established in the 1800s, and it was so beautiful. The grounds were beautiful. The building was just so historic. It had 4 different floors with rooms that we could stay in. Everybody had their own room. We had a big, nice meeting center, like meeting room, that we could all sit in at the same time, along with the different little sitting rooms for everybody to, break off in little groups and just meet. And it was just really fun to get together with everybody and get to knit for the whole weekend. While we were there, we went to the Unraveled Creative Studio yarn store. We broke off into groups to do that because they asked for us not to have more than 10 people in a group. It was a very nice yarn store. The owners were very accepting, and they actually gave us $5 coupons to use when we shopped there. And if you forgot your coupon, like in my case, I did forget my coupon, they still gave me the $5 off, which was really nice. And it was a really great yarn store in Racine, Wisconsin. You should totally check it out if you're in that area. We also went to the Mound Cemetery. Me and a few of the other Yarniacs went to the Mound Cemetery, where they have Indian mounds, and it's a pretty old cemetery. Some of the oldest tombstones were from the 1800s as well. We also took a tour of SC Johnson Global Headquarters that were designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And that was just an amazing experience. We got to see a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright's works. There was a building that had some of his furniture that he had designed. In just that building, they had miniatures of some of the buildings he had designed. And of course, like I said, he designed 2 of the buildings on their site there. And we got to go inside those buildings and look around. And it was just amazing to see his work and hear about what SC Johnson had done for innovating the way that people are paid, the 40-hour work week, the 401ks that are offered, paid time off. I mean, he was an amazing person, an amazing innovator. And then lastly, we went to the Sugar Shack Sweet Shop and had ice cream. That was on the day that we went to the yarn store. And they have Cedar Crest ice cream. And Cedar Crest ice cream is some of the best ice cream. If you haven't had Cedar Crest, you should try it. They have all different flavors, and it's just Cedar Crest ice cream is one of the best. And that was at the Sugar Shack Sweet Shop in Racine, Wisconsin. So let's jump right in to works in progress. The first thing I've been working on is bear number 7 of my charity bears. I was doing the Knitting Without Borders pattern, and I decided that I need to try some new patterns. So this one is the trauma center bear, I want to say. I will find out what the name of it is and link it in the show notes. But this is just my start. I decided to crochet this one, and I have one little leg here, and it'll have little shorts on, and hopefully I'll be able to finish this one before I record the next episode, and I'll show you what this little cutie looks like. And for my bears, I just use leftovers from various projects, mostly acrylic from my Precious Moments blanket, the Brava Knit Picks Brava worsted that I made that blanket out of. I had a lot of leftovers, so Again, that's a charity bear. I think it's for the trauma centers, but I will link that in the show notes. The next thing I've been working on is my Ultimate Lounge Shorts by the Cumbrian Knitter. For this one, I'm using Haiku Kobasi DK in the indigo colorway. And for this, you start by knitting the legs. This is one leg, and it's almost as long. I think I'm going to make the legs about 4 inches, and then I'll be able to join them together and work on the body of the shorts. But this is just my beginning. This is a cotton bamboo silk yarn, so it should be really nice and cozy for me to wear to bed. I'm planning on wearing these to bed when I finish them. So again, that's the Ultimate Lounge Shorts by the Cumbrian Knitter, and I'm using Haiku Kobasi DK in the indigo colorway. The next thing I've been working on is Make No Mistake by Sarah Shira, or Imagine Landscapes. For this one, I'm using Leading Men Fiber Art Showstopper in Antique Sleigh Ride, Drama Queen, and Darkest Hour. So here is Make No Mistake. This is Gnocchi. And he has a little mushroom on his hat. Oh, little mushroom on his hat. All of the color work on the hat is done, and I used what I learned from the color dominance exercises that we've been doing in the Knitting in the Loft group to make sure that those purple, the Drama Queen, it really shows against the Antique Sleigh Ride yellow. And I'm on his body, working on the straight section, and I'm about halfway through the straight section, and then I'll be able to start on the decreases, and then I'll have to make his nose and his beard, and he will be done. Again, this is Make No Mistake by Sarah Shira, also known as Imagine Landscapes. And I'm using Leading Men Fiber Art Showstopper in Antique Sleigh Ride, Drama Queen, and Darkest Hour. I've also been working on my counted cross stitch. The counted cross stitch that I'm making is called Day's End by Judy Gibson. And I've been working in this one section, getting it filled in before I move on to the next section. I'm working on the sky right now, and I will get all this filled in, and then I'll move on to another section. You can see the deer here is almost all the way filled in. You can see these nice trees that I've got, and the big tree coming up, and the sky is getting filled in. And that's my counted cross stitch, Day's End by Judy Gibson. I've also been working on spinning my Dakota Carding and Wool Cormo BFL Firestar blend, and the colorway is called Carnival. I've got almost a whole bobbin full of that, and then what I'll probably do is spin another bobbin, and then I'll decide if I want 2-ply or 3-ply and see how much I have left after I get the 2 bobbins full, and see if it seems like I should Navajo ply for a 3-ply or just 2-ply the 2 bobbins together. Again, that's the Dakota Carding and Wool Cormo BFL Firestar blend and the Carnival colorway. And it's mostly white with speckles of orange and blue and green. It's just different colors. Okay, that's all my works in progress. Let's move on to finished objects. The first thing or things that I finished are Knitting Without Borders bears number 5 and 6. Here are the 2 little bears. I have adjusted their pattern to work in the round instead of working it flat and sewing it together. And for this one, I just shaped his ears as I was sewing up the top of his head with a Kitchener stitch. But with this one, I tried some more shaping, so I did some decreases along the edge and then did bobbles for the ears before Kitchenering it together in the center. So these are Knitting Without Borders bears, and I'm not sure what charity I'm going to be sending them to yet because they're not accepting, they're only accepting bears for Ukraine right now. So I will find another charity to send these little guys to, or I'm going to hold on to them until Knitting Without Borders is accepting more bears. The next thing that I've finished is an emotional support chicken for my middle daughter using the 2023 Bumblebee Acres Farms Advent Kit that I previously finished a sweater with. So my daughter already has her chicken, so you can see a picture of it right here. She named her chicken Hennifer, which is a great chicken name, and she has it at her house where she's living with her fiance right now. So that's why she's not here for me to talk about in the podcast. So the emotional support chicken is a pattern by Annette Corsino, and it's just really fun to make. I wanted to see what it would look like if I made it, and how much smaller it would be if I made it out of fingering weight yarn instead of the worsted weight yarn that the pattern calls for. And it was such a cute little chicken, a perfect size for an older person who doesn't need a big stuffed animal to give them support. So again, that's the Emotional Support Chicken by Annette Corsino, using the leftovers from my 2023 Advent Kit from Bumblebee Acres Farms. The next thing that I've finished is some helical knitting socks. Helical knitting is a technique where you use more than one strand of yarn at the same time, and you join them partway through the round. And then when you get to the new color, you drop the color you're using, pick up the new color, and continue to the next color, drop the color, pick up the new color. And it makes a really fun striping effect on the socks in this case. For this one, I used no pattern for the sock itself, but I used the Fish Lips Kiss Heel by Socks Therapist. And I used Sock Obsessions Yarns, Resilient Smooth Sock and Bad Influence, Uru Yarn, Unicorn Sock and Hot Cocoa, and then other random little balls that I joined together with the Russian join to work them in the socks. So here are my socks. You can see that this bright green just carries all the way through in the gray. That's from the Sock Obsessions yarn in the Bad Influence colorway. This is the Uru sock in Hot Cocoa, and it has little tweedy bits in there that makes it actually look like hot cocoa, and that's carried all the way up through the sock. And I did the heels with that, and then the other random leftovers made the fun stripes on there. So again, this is the Fish Lips Kiss Heel by Socks Therapist, and the yarn is Sock Obsessions Yarn Resilient Smooth Sock in Bad Influence, Uru Yarn Sock in Hot Cocoa, and then other random small balls that I had left over. The next thing that I finished is my Go Big or Go Gnome mittens, also by Sarah Shira, also known as Imagine Landscapes. This was the June pattern for the Project a Month knit along group. And for this one, I used Leading Men Fiber Art Showstopper in Darkest Hour, that's the dark color, and Malabrigo Sock and Terracotta, which is the orange, and then a single dye lot, which is the pink. And I really love how these little mittens turned out. They do not fit anybody in my family, so they will probably be donated or used as a birthday gift for some little person who's having a birthday. And I also practiced my color dominance on these mittens. You can see here where I inadvertently switched my dominant color from the black, the Darkest Hour, to the terracotta, and how much of a difference it actually makes. So again, that's Go Big or Go Gnome mittens by Sarah Shira, using Leading Men Fiber Arts Showstopper and Darkest Hour, and Malabrigo yarn sock and terracotta, and the single dye lot dyed pink. The next thing that I finished was Izzy's Socks by Jude Hollingshead, and I loosely followed the pattern on this one. This one was supposed to be knit cuff down with a heel flap and gusset. I did not do the heel flap and gusset. I did the Fish Lips Kiss heel, which I like, which is my preferred heel. I did, however, follow the colorwork pattern, which when I looked at the pattern, I thought it was a 2x2 stranded color work. It turns out it's a 2x2 ribbing in stranded color work for 2 rows, and then 2 rows of solid color, and then 2 rows of 2x2 stranded color work, or corrugated ribbing, if you will, in the 2x2 ribbing. So I made one with yellow as the dominant color. You can see the big difference here. You would think that it was the toes that make the dominant color show more, but it's actually not. It's because I was carrying the yellow, the antique. The yarn that I used for these is Leading Men Fiber Arts Showstopper in Antique Sleigh Ride and Drama Queen. So the Antique Sleigh Ride on this one I held as the dominant color, and you can tell that the sock looks more yellow with purple stripes or zigzags. And this one I used the Drama Queen as the main color. And so this one is more like a Drama Queen or purple sock with yellow zigzags. And then I made opposite heels on each one to make it a little bit more fun, and opposite cuffs. So these are for my middle daughter. They won't fit me, but they do fit into the colors of Fall Knit Along in the Yarniacs podcast knitting group. So this was actually a cast on that I did while I was at the retreat, and it was on June 20th, which was the summer solstice, and that knit along goes through the winter or the fall solstice, so till September 20th, I want to say, but I'm not sure that's the exact date. But again, these are Izzy's socks for the main color work pattern, and then the heel is the Fish Lips Kiss heel by Socks Therapist, using Leading Men's Fiber Arts in Antique Sleigh Ride and Drama Queen. The next things that I finished were the Color Dominance appetizers for the Stranded Knitting Summer Challenge in the Knitting in the Loft group. So I talked a little bit about that with the mittens and with the gnome hat. But the first Color Dominance exercise that we did was this nice 1x1 stranded color work. And you can see that the dominant color I changed halfway. So the way that I hold my yarns when I'm working stranded color work is I hold both of them in my right hand because I'm a thrower. I have one coming up over my finger and one that is in the palm of my hand that I just kind of grab and pull through as I'm working those stitches in that color. So it turns out I thought the dominant color would be the one that was over my finger, that it is not. It is the one that is in the palm of my hand. So for this section down here, the green was in the palm of my hand. For this section up here, the gray was in the palm of my hand. So, and you can really see the difference in the dominant color. So when you're working color work, it's usually the contrast color that you want to pop, not the background color. So that's the one that should be coming up from underneath to make that color more dominant. And then we did this one with little lice stitches, and you can actually see better on camera how different it is. Down here, the green was the dominant color. Up here, the gray was the dominant color. But on the other side, they both look exactly the same. So I just noticed that it's different on both sides. So Nancy, look, it worked on this side, but not on this side. But you can tell the different color dominance. And now I have 2 new cup cozies that I can use for when I go out and order drinks. So that was the Color Dominance appetizer. And I just used random leftovers that I had in my stash for that. The last thing that I finished was my Tunisian crochet dishcloth. This is a dishcloth that lives in my car. It lives there for when I'm waiting to pick up my groceries that I have ordered, or waiting for doctor's appointments, or anytime that I'm sitting and waiting to do anything. I work on this washcloth with Tunisian crochet, which of course it's black, so it's kind of hard to see the stitches in there, but it's just a simple Tunisian crochet stitch. This is either peaches and cream or lilies and cream cotton that I use for these, and it'll just be a washcloth that I'll use at the house or gift to somebody when I go to their house for something that they've invited me there for. I don't know too much about Tunisian crochet. That's really the only stitch that I know. I have started another dishcloth though, because I finished this one, and for that one I'm trying to make a mitered square, so that's kind of fun. I'm learning to decrease on that one, and I'll share it with you when I'm done with it. And this is just a basic Tunisian crochet dishcloth that I made while I was waiting for random things, you know, various things. So that's all of the finished projects. Let's move on to knit-alongs. Okay, for knit-alongs, the first knit-along that I want to talk about is in the Mama Jess Knits podcast group on Ravelry. This is the 2025 Summer Sock Knitting KAL knit-along, and it runs from May 24th, 2025 to August 31st, 2025. And basically, any socks qualify, but she asked that they be adult socks. They can be shorties or regular length or whatever, but she just wants them to be adult socks that are made between those dates. The next knit-along that I'm participating in is, as I said, the Project a Month KAL group, knit-along group. For June, we did the Go Big or Go Gnome mittens by Sarah Shira, also known as Imagine Landscapes. So I'm not sure what we're going to do for July yet. The moderators have to discuss it, and then we'll get that shared with you. The third knit-along that I participate in is the Simply Stranded 2025 Loft Summer Challenge and Knit-along. That is in the Knitting in the Loft group. And that one runs from June 1st to September 1st, 2025. If you are interested in starting stranded colorwork knitting or continuing stranded colorwork knitting and want to improve your skills, it's a great group for you to join. We've done the color dominance exercise. There's letter back to card exercise, and there's a sticking exercise before we get to the main event, which would be creating your own project. When you can participate in any of the appetizers, the sticking, the color dominance, or the letter back to card, or you can just jump right in and do your own project. So again, that's the Knitting in the Loft group on Ravelry, the Simply Stranded 2025 Loft Summer Challenge and Knit-along, and it runs from June 1st to September 1st, 2025. Then there's the Yarniacs podcast, hosting in the Ravelry group the Colors of Fall knit-along. This knit-along is based on the Pantone colors of fall. They also include the colors of spring, fall, summer, all the palettes, because there's so many wonderful colors that you can work with. For this one, the socks, the Izzy's socks that I made are included in that, and I don't remember which palette they're from, but the two colors are on some of the palettes. So that was my first entry for the Colors of Fall knit-along in the Yarniacs podcast group, and that runs from June 20th to September 22nd, 2025. And the last, I'm going to say knit-along, but it's not really a knit-along. This is bingo that is hosted by the podcast Craft, Cook, Read, Repeat. To get the bingo, they make a bingo sheet, and it has crafts, cooking, and reading, just like the name of the podcast suggests. And you can get bingo by doing one of those things, and there is a way to get bingo by doing just one of those things, or you can do all three of those things, and you're able to let them know that you got one bingo, which is a straight line in any direction. And you can also get a double entry if you get the coverall for that. So I actually have my first bingo, and I'm working on my coverall. I do a lot of reading in the summer for the bingo KAL. So that's just something to think about, and you should check out their podcast if you haven't listened to it yet. And if you like bingo, this is a really fun bingo that you can participate in. So that's all of the knit-alongs that I'm participating in. Let's move on to more out than in. Because today is the 29th of June, I don't have my actual numbers for finishing out the month of June. But I just wanted to let you know that I did end up taking over 6,000 yards of yarn to the Destash table at the Yarniacs Podcast Knitting Retreat. And I came home with a lot less than that. I did pick up some yarn from the Destash, and I did pick up some yarn from the local yarn store in Racine, but it was less than what I took. So I'm doing really good there, and I'll have the final June numbers for you on the next podcast. Let's move on to my patterns. I'm still working on my shawl pattern, which is a V-shaped, or a triangle shaped shawl that has special stitches, and it has a little bit of lace and a little bit of stockinette. So it's really interesting. And for this one, I'm using Leading Men Fiber Arts Show Stealer, which is their cashmere base, and Bare Necessities, Krampus, and Poison Apple. I'm hoping to have this ready to be released in December for the Christmas holiday because my colors are very Christmassy. And so just keep your eyes open for the new shawl pattern. I'll be looking for testers soon, and I'll announce that on the podcast. And yeah, I haven't released a shawl in a long time, and it'll be really fun to have this one released for you. And now let's move on to gardening. So we're outside again for this gardening section, and today I'm going to talk about the Guelder rose bush that we have outside. The scientific name is Viburnum opalus. This is it in its full bloom here. We always call it our snowball bush because of the way that the flowers look like snowballs. And you can see it's just a lot of little flowers in there making up this little snowball effect. So the Guelder rose is a species of Adoxaceae. It came with our house when we moved here. And they have 3-lobe, 5 by 10 centimeter long, with round base and coarsely serrated margins. The flowers are white, as you can see, and they look like snowballs. It's pollinated by insects, which is actually perfect because we have a nice little insect right there. I'm not sure if it's a pollinator, but he's there. We don't do anything to this one either. It just hangs out in our yard here in northern Wisconsin. And it grows, and I think it might even get a little bit bigger every year. We don't prune it. We don't do anything else. But that is our Guelder rose. So that's all that I have for you today. Until next time, keep doing what you love. Bye.